And now I get an opportunity to introduce you. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you need to come? I get an opportunity to introduce you to a good friend. I've known Dr. Holloway for 10 years or so. Tori and I met about 10 years ago in Mississippi, in which I was facilitating a superintendent academy and he was a participant, then at Quitman District. From there, he was at Simpson, where we worked shoulder to shoulder in redesigning that district. And now he is in Vicksburg-Warren, a school district that he is going to talk about, a district that I knew a lot about prior to Tori becoming its superintendent. But just an absolutely fabulous district doing some fabulous work. Tori is the type of leader who, honestly, he sets the bar and the standard for caring about his community and his parents and his students and his teachers. But he is inflexible when it comes to standards for students and what's best for them. You're an incredible leader. It is my honor to introduce you all to Dr. Tori Holloway.
Appreciate that. Well, Phil, after that introduction and lineup, I need to bring the Temptations on the stage with me. So, listen, I need y'all to, and I said y'all, I didn't say you guys. You can take the man out of the South, but you can't take the South out of the man. I need you all to do one favor before I tell you about our wonderful district. On the count of three, I want everybody to say hallelujah, okay? Everybody got that assignment? Just say hallelujah at the count of three. 1, 2, 3. So now when my mom and the school board asked me how I did, I'm going to say I had them shouting hallelujah. All right. Thank you for entertaining me with that. It's my privilege to be here and to share the wonderful work that's going on in the Vicksburg-Warren School District. I'll tell you a little bit about who we are and then what we do. And Jason is absolutely right. We don't compromise on things when it comes to our kids and preparing them for our future. Even at the cost of going against what the grain is in Mississippi, it is our priority to do that. You see our 2030 model there. We're in the process of strategic planning, which strongly involves our community and what we call empathy interviews. We want to make sure we're serving the community, and I'll get into more about how important the community is for us shortly. So a little bit about our district. We have 18 school sites, 10 elementaries, 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, CTE Center, which is critical in our mission, and an alternative setting. We have about 7,000 kids, a little bit over 600 teachers, 1,000 staff. 100% we're a community eligible district, meaning all of our kids eat free lunch. And I work for those 7,000 kids and those 1,000 employees. I get the great privilege to do that every day. This is a little bit about our community. We have 42,000, a little bit over 42,000 residents, and that median household income is high. We have the ERDIC, the Engineering Research and Design Center located in Vicksburg. There's a lot of things that go on there that you wouldn't believe, but that's why that median household income is high. And we have a branch of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We have the Port of Vicksburg, and we have 27. That was at the beginning of this year. We now have 31 signed business partners who are a big part of what we do in serving our students and community. And here's our motto, and we firmly believe this, that all education leads to employment. Every bit of it, everything we do is about leading kids to employment, whether that's going into a 2-year university and then employment or a 4-year university followed by employment. Everything that we do leads to work. Yes, we have to play the game of the test scores and, the grades and being put on the front page of the paper, but we use the content to do what we need to do for our kids. So this is, the work began in our district in about 2016, 2017. And prior to that, I wasn't in the district at the time, but in 2016, the district's graduation rate was 58%. 58%. We had about 9,000 kids at that time, and only 58% of our students were graduating with a high school diploma. Through our work, and up to this date last year, our graduation rate was up to 92%. And it is firmly, thank you. You can attribute that, thank you, that's right, hallelujah. You can attribute that to the work that we've done around our career academies, emphasizing CTE, Leader in Me, and some other things that I'll talk about. But what drove our work? It began with some conversations in collaboration with NCEE that pushed our thinking. My predecessor, Chad Sheely, began the work. I've had the great opportunity to continue and expand the work, but it began talking about how in Estonia they personalize learning. They're responsive to student needs. In Finland, how there's an education for all approach, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But those discussions, and some of those with Jason, were very heated discussions. And he pushed us to not think about what we can do in our context, or what we can't do in our context, but what can you do in your current context, as he threw all this stuff, because our mindset was to make an excuse. Well, we have this, we have that, but he pushed us to think about what can you do. And here's what our community believes. Putting a limit on what you will do for kids puts a limit on what you can do for kids. And we don't believe, we try everything that we can to meet the needs of our kids. Here's a little bit about our district in a nutshell. We have a portrait of a graduate. I've done work with Battelle for Kids in Ohio. Been here several times. But our foundation is Leader in Me. And if you're not familiar with that, we begin in pre-K teaching kids the 7 habits of highly effective people. And our pre-K kids can tell you what it means to be proactive. They can tell you what it means to begin with the end in mind. So we start focusing on their behaviors for work early on in pre-K. And then everything that we do, thank you, centers around that. Our CTE program, our college and career academies, centers around our portrait of a graduate. And at the top right, we have what we call our 4 exit strategies. There's a high-performing jurisdiction who has no dead ends for students as they matriculate through their school district. Every kid in the Vicksburg-Warren School District has an exit. We have an academy signing day where kids declare, this is where I'm going when I get to the 12th grade after I leave the Vicksburg-Warren School District. So these are our 3 career academies. Now, our career academies are a little different, and they may have some in Ohio, but ours are wall-to-wall, meaning at Warren Central High School, there are 1,200 kids. There are 1,200 students enrolled in a career academy of their choice. And that begins with their career exploration in pre-K. And I'll show you how we do that. Our kids are exposed to what a job is, what a career academy is, beginning in pre-K. But here's what drives what we do. That community forum is key. Everything that we do, our community has supported, it started, and it is successful because of our community. We were at a community meeting for our advisory board for the career academies last year, and this is why I love our community. We had students who needed interns, and at that meeting we had 5 businesses in the community step up and say, I'll take an intern from the Vicksburg-Warren School District. We had 6 students to go and interview at Merit Health, which is a hospital in Vicksburg. They were only going to take 2. After interviewing those 6 students at Vicksburg High School, they took all 6. That speaks to who our community is and how they support this, and it would not happen with them. I just have the great privilege of serving them in that capacity. That's why it is the center of this slide, because they drive what we do. These are our assigned business partners. There are over 400 businesses in the Vicksburg-Warren community. We have a business liaison person who that's his job is keeping up with new businesses that come into the community, making sure we have them on a spreadsheet so if we need them, we can reach out to them. I serve on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, and that's a little self-serving, because when businesses do come in, one of our jobs is to call and welcome that business to the community. Well, at the same time I'm welcoming you, I'm asking, how can we have kids in your business? Now, I had a funny story. I was welcoming a business. I didn't know what it was. It was a marijuana dispensary, which I had no idea wasn't good for the superintendent to be calling a marijuana dispensary and welcoming them to the community. But we look at every opportunity to provide our kids with internships and our teachers with externships. This is just some of the people that we've worked with over the years in our process, and it is a process. This work is hard, it's not easy. Innovation is messy, but at the end of it, what you can do for kids is worth all of the headaches and everything that we've gone through in our district. And for our career academies and CTE, one of those books that I talked about was the Career Technical Education and its approach in a global marketplace. CTE is huge for us. We pay for all of our students to receive dual credit, CTE credit, with our community college. When we start the budgeting process, that's one thing. We can cut teacher units, we can cut a lot of things, but we do not cut opportunities for kids when it comes to CTE and dual credit and anything that leads to employment. We have 16 CTE programs. We just added advanced manufacturing, and they are embedded in our career academy. So if you're a part of a career academy, at the end of your 10th grade year, you have the option of going into a CTE program within your career academy. And again, that is all of our students. Our SCD students, our significantly cognitively delayed students, are in our HHS Academy because they participate in what's called Project Search. They work at our Merit Health, our hospital system, and they do internships there. Some end up receiving jobs there, but every kid has a pathway out of the Vicksburg Warren School District. Here's our enrollment in CTE. Right now we have 564 kids between our two high schools that are in our CTE program. Our third high school is an early college high school, and I was there talking to the kids, and one of the young men asked me, well, just because I'm here, why don't I have the opportunity to participate in CTE? And I said, you know what, that's a good question. We'll take care of that next year. So now they are allowed to participate in dual enrollment CTE if they so choose at the early college high school. This is our intern numbers from the past couple of years. We push our kids to get out there, and the thing about it, these new kids, if you're not paying them, they don't necessarily want to work. So through Accelerate Mississippi, an organization that's similar to what you all have here in Ohio Higher, they have started paying for internships. And last year, our Board of Supervisors used some of their ARPA money to provide internships for our students. And again, that just goes to show you how the community is engaged with us and how they support what we do as a district. So these are some of our industry certifications. We have 18 students who get up and they're at our CTE center at 7 o'clock in the morning getting HVAC certification. My favorite check to clear every month is we pay our local area transit $3,000 a month to transport those students to the CTE so they can get that HVAC certification. I love going in and clicking and approving that check every month, because if kids are that committed to their future and work, then we're going to do everything that we can to provide that. Our kids get certified in forklift training. We're actually in the process of looking into a CDL, getting a CDL license. There's some pre things you can learn before you take that test, because it's expensive. I think it's about $5,000 to get your CDL. So we want our kids, if that's what you choose to do, we want you to walk out of the building being ready to do that. Hines Community College just started a maritime industry, and we're located on the Mississippi River. So I'm on the board of trustees for the community college. I made sure they saved us a few spots, because in 6 weeks at the maritime industry, you can walk onto a tugboat and make about $25 an hour. You get to be a tugboat captain. I wish I'd have known that before I became an educator. You can make about $150,000. So we want our kids to have every opportunity that's available. If they have to choose between standing on the corner and participating in something that's not legal and doing something that they can get money for and not have to worry about it, we want them to have the opportunity to participate in it. For us, our journey starts for our kids in pre-K. That's our continuum, and it doesn't list everything that we do, but we take our kids on industry visits, our teachers do externships, and our community supports us and they invite us in. And here's what I appreciate about them. There's a group that we were not taking care of, Ergon, the way we should have. And the human resource person came to meet with me and made sure that our connection was still good. And so we started our industry visits back and pushing them back the way they should. So we're not a perfect system. We are still pushing to be great. But the main thing for us and the thing that we don't compromise is what we do for our kids and providing them with the opportunities to do the things that they want to do. We are just beginning to put out what we call a 4-exit scorecard. We're beginning in pre-K. We track the activities that kids do as they go through the school district to ensure that they're college, career, and life ready when they leave us. And it's a simple checklist of activities that we've developed that begins. This is an elementary scorecard. We have middle school scorecards, and we have high school scorecards. And after we finish them, we're going to ask the school board to make this a graduation requirement, along with personal finance as well. At a 5th grader, we do something we call Pathways to Progress, where we go around and we talk to kids about what's going on in school, their experiences. And I had a 5th grader tell me she wanted to know what a check was. How does insurance work? And the one sure way to break the cycle of poverty, besides education, is financial literacy. And we are going to emphasize financial literacy based off my conversation with that 5th grader, and she was very sincere in her request. So we're making that a mandate as well. So as you can see, we do a lot in our school district, and it's all in the name of kids. Now, is this comfortable for adults all the time? No, it's not. Do we still play the game of the accountability model and state tests? Yes, we do, because we have to. But it is not the only thing. We believe in educating and taking care of the whole child through the Leader in Me, through our 21st century skills on our Portrait of a Graduate, and what we do day to day as far as internships and getting our kids exposed to what's out there beyond U.S. history and the quadratic equation and algebra. There's a whole nother world out there, and I've yet to fire a person because they couldn't solve a quadratic equation. Because they can't show the work on time, they can't do the things that we ask them to do that go back to those skills and habits. Now, I've talked a lot. I know y'all used to Southern folks talking slow, so I had to make sure I sped it up, especially since y'all don't have sweet tea here. And we're going to talk about that if I come back. Teach y'all what sweet tea is. But I've said a lot. You're welcome to visit. We do tours every year. There are 137 school districts in Mississippi, and we're one of 2 or 3 that's going against the grain. We're what's called a district of innovation. And your Department of Education leader said something that was profound. We do all this great stuff, but I won't be satisfied until every kid in Mississippi gets the opportunities that my students have in the Vicksburg-Warren School District. So I've talked, thank you. I've talked a lot about what we do, but I have a video that I want you to hear from one of our students who talks about her experience in the Vicksburg-Warren School District. And after that, we'll have Mario Krausch to come up. I hope I pronounced that correctly with that Southern twang. We'll have Mario come up to the stage after that. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for what you do for our kids. They're our most precious commodity, and they need us more than they will let us know. So thank you.
Hey, my name is Destiny Perkins. I'm a former Vicksburg High School student and a former CTE intern student who now works as an employee at Merit Health. My experience as an intern at Merit Health, it was fun but also educational, with being able to go around and shadow different departments to figure out just exactly where I want to be. Internship impacted my life by showing me different departments, exactly where I wanted to be and where exactly I would fit in and would want to pursue an education and further career. The internship was very beneficial to me because where I'm working at currently, I was already shadowing that floor and being around those employees, so it wasn't really a new setting for me. I already basically knew the employees, so it wasn't hard to get adjusted with them or learn their softwares that they use and different skills that they use. CTE training was very beneficial by giving me the groundbreaking information I need to know for my internship and for my current job, as far as the medical terminology, with helping me understand the diagnosis and as far as the skills for patient skills.
Thank you so much. Is that working? Perfect. Thank you. Mario Crotch, my name. Jason Torre, you really ramped up the temperature here, yeah? So I need to keep up with that one. Thank you so much for the shout outs. I'm so sorry. Okay. Before I'm going to start, I just want to let some people talk. You will see them in the video because I think they're the best ambassadors of what we do. We're talking about the good old-fashioned apprenticeship programs, but we're not talking about the good old-fashioned apprenticeship programs. We're talking about modernizing them, ramping them up, and we're also talking about, and Jason, I think you mentioned that, we couldn't wait for the system to change. We needed to do something. So we were lucky enough in 2014 to start, an apprenticeship program that is fully benchmarked also on the German standards, but embedded into the United States culture. So it is a US workforce development program. And I would love to start with the video right now.
Both of my parents are pretty in debt because of that stuff, because of school, you know what I mean?
I have friends who went to a four-year school, four-year degrees. By the time that they're out of school, they're gonna have this massive pile of debt. And at that point, I'm gonna have all my schooling done, already have experience in the field, and already have a place to go.
I'm like, yes, I want to be a robotic engineer, this will be great. And I come in, I'm like, maybe not. So within the past 3 years, I really fell in love with electrical design, or with electrical things.
Sometimes, personally, I struggle with something that when I don't understand something, it's hard for me, to put in the effort to have to do it.
Coming into the apprenticeship, not having any background on anything in this field at all, sometimes it felt like drinking out of a fire hose.
Being here, it's a good environment. They're willing to help me learn. There are things that are hard that I have to try and really figure out.
I have never seen anymore that is more willing to put their students before themselves and fight for us as much as he has. And I can honestly say if it weren't for him being the head of this program, I don't think I'd be anywhere close to where I am today.
Since day one, I've been trying to find the catch, and I really haven't found it.
I've learned a lot. It's just tremendous amounts of information.
My end goal is to become kind of like an electrical engineer, doing electrical schematics and all of that. So I'm going to use that as one of my first stepping stones going to electrical design. So this is going to be, really fun. I'm really excited for it.
I never thought that I would say this, but at 20 years old, I don't see myself leaving the company.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have, so no presentations. Okay. Looking at what we did in 2014 is we literally couldn't, and when I say we, I'm always talking from the industry perspective, from companies, not just US, not just German companies here, but also US companies. We couldn't wait for the system to change anymore because at that point we had two problems. Number one is we don't find the people with the right skills. Number two, once we have them, how do we keep them? So those were things that we needed to address. Well, here in the United States, as you might know that, you might hear that I'm German, I'm a little confused in the beginning when I moved here 10 years ago that the industry is entirely seen, or the industry sees itself entirely as a client of the education system. So you educate, we take what's graduating out of it. Which is actually pretty cool because I can lean back as the industry and complain about what you guys do all the time. We need to flip the script, and we want to flip the script, and trust me, the time is right now that companies are eager to flip the script, to be partners or even to be behind the wheel when it comes to that one. We set that program up, and we were able, and this is a smart thing about, being here in the United States, we were able to take the best of both worlds. We were able to take the good things that work in Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. By the way, those systems are similar. But we were also able to use the good things here in the United States, a massive amount of flexibility you have. You guys cannot imagine how much bureaucracy is over there in Europe. Anyway, we started that with 7 companies in 2015. And right now we're at the status that we already had 800 plus apprentices in this program, giving them career opportunities that they otherwise would not have had. Now, when looking at how to develop it, of course, apprenticeship program, everybody knows it's related instruction plus on-the-job training. The related instruction is done at a school. The on-the-job training is done at a company. How the heck does this work? And here's where intermediaries come in. Intermediaries are crucial because the vast majority of those companies that are looking for those solutions are small and mid-sized companies. They don't have the resources to come up with something on their own. Not the financial resources, not the human resources, and that's why we need those partnerships. Now, looking at the curriculum and the standards, it's easy. We just could plug and play from what we know from Germany because we use the industry standards. And, you might get it, an industry mechanical or mechatronics technician, is a mechatronics technician is a mechatronics technician, no matter if you talk to a company in Bangladesh or Germany or here in the United States. So we had those in place already, and those standards are developed come from the industry. In our case, for the ICAT apprenticeship program, ICAT stands for Industry Consortium for Advanced Technical Training. First, fun fact, in the first 6 months, that was Illinois Consortium for Advanced Technical Training. After we started that 6 months later, we got requests from companies in Wisconsin that they could join. So we had a little bit of an issue, but we used ICAT and we were flexible. Now, when we were looking into how do we partner with schools, we specifically partnered with community colleges. And you might like that or not, but for as long as the society here in the United States, as moms, dads, parents, families think that their kids have to go to college, you have to deliver. If you don't deliver, you don't get your hands on the good candidates graduating from those high schools. However, what we did is it's mandatory in the program that the companies cover all the cost. And you saw that. It's debt-free education. So we also embedded an associate's degree. So all of the apprentices, in addition to having their training at the companies, receiving their paychecks, they go to college. They get their tuition being paid for. So that means after 3 years of the apprenticeship program, they're debt-free. And they have an associate's degree. And with doing it like this, we were able to do a few amazing things. Number one is we could finally label apprenticeship is not a preparation for a job. It is the first step in your career pathway, period. Because nobody wants to be trained for a job. That job's gone in 5 years from now. Technology changes, so what do I do with a credential that prepared me for a job? The other thing that we do and that we implement here is rigorous testing. Jason, you mentioned it. We have standards, but you cannot manage what you don't measure. And I don't want to know what you know as an industry representative. I want to know, can you apply what you've learned? Because my reality on the shop floor is I have a problem, fix it. I don't care how you use it. I want to have a troubleshooter. I want to have people that, do not repeat what they have learned because it doesn't solve the problem. I want to have people that are able to use their knowledge. And that's what we train within this program. I haven't seen a red flag right now, so I think I'm still good, yeah? With my time? Okay, good. Some facts and stats that might be super interesting for the industry representatives here. Who's an industry representative? Companies, okay. With the program overall, we had around about 800 plus apprentices being served in there right now. It's 160 companies in 12 states in the United States participating, all of them according to the same minimum standard. So we don't look at like, this is the standard of, Illinois, that's the standard in Wisconsin. All of them have the same minimum standard, and by the way, you can add whatever you want to. If you think your maintenance technicians need cooking classes, then deliver them cooking classes. Who am I to judge to come up with that? 160 companies right now in the program. 2/3 of those companies are US companies. So I'm German. I'm not talking about German companies here. And by the way, a German company or Swiss company here in the United States is a US company. I just want to make that point. But 2/3 of those companies are US companies, and they use these systems or these programs exactly for what they stand for, to finally have a tool to implement a mid to long-term workforce development strategy in their companies. Because, and you remember when I started in 2014, when we started, we had those two problems. We don't have the people with the right skills, and once we have them, how can we keep them? Right now that has changed a little. Right now we don't even have enough buddies out there. So I'm not competing for workforce within my industry. I'm competing with the Amazons, with all the others, with the McDonald's out there. So how do I become, an interesting employer for you to start your career with me? And I'm willing to invest. And believe me, all of those kids, they got it. In those 3 years, they learned, or they knew that their employer is carrying. And by the way, who's investing 3 years into my professional career? They might have some bigger goal there. They might hire me. The number I wanted to get back to is 85% retention rate. So for those industry representatives, 85% of those apprentices graduating from the program are still with their companies. I'm not sure what it is here in Ohio, but I know in Illinois is on a regular basis for manufacturing in general, the retention rate that you have if you hire someone for any given position in your manufacturing shop floor in the first 6 months is around about 30%. Or something like that. So an 85% retention rate in those 3 years actually is just amazing. Now, what do? We didn't stop there. We developed ourselves, our organization, as an intermediary, and we wanted to have this program as a turnkey solution for literally all the companies to easily participate. And what does this mean? It also means qualifying trainers. Being the intermediary between the partners and the companies, because also what I saw for the longest time, and that gap's gonna close real fast, and I see it closing, is like industry was here in that silo, education was that and that, here in that silo. We didn't even talk with each other a lot, and that needs to change. Because how can the education system deliver what I want if I'm not communicating to the education system what I want, but also to all of those of you in the industry, and from a company's perspective, sometimes what I want is not necessarily what I need. So you have to have someone who, bridges the gap between those two. Now I got the red flag here. It's just 1 minute. Long story short, we're expanding. This program is called ICAT for a reason. If you look at the website, you barely see any kind of, feedback loop to Germany and towards the good German things that we do over there. This is an workforce solution. This is a model that can be used here in the United States, and it is a US program fully embedded in the US system as well, with all the players, with the state agencies and the departments here. But one thing that I want to put on everyone's radar, and I appreciate the invitation so that I can do that here, is let's not get confused when we talk about apprenticeships. When Germans, probably Europeans and Americans talk about apprenticeships, we're talking about two different things. And here is why I'm saying this. In Europe, in Germany, apprenticeship are seen as an economic issue. First, not a labor issue, not an education issue, it's an economic issue. Our economy can only thrive and grow and provide the career opportunities if the economy is doing well. Here in the United States, in some states, it's a little different. It doesn't mean we can't overcome those challenges, but for an apprenticeship, the rule number one is the industry has to be in the driver's seat. Everyone else is a partner, a great partner. We need you guys, but we know that you cannot be in the driver's seat to deliver exactly what I want. I have to be in the driver's seat. I have to make this investment, and I can guarantee that companies in the industry are willing to make this investment together with the amazing partners that we have out here. And with that, thank you so much. I wasn't waiting for that. I was just going through my head if there's something else that I need to throw out here. But I'm going to be here for the entire day, so if you want to talk to me, feel free. And I'm so happy to now introduce Vicky here. I'm talking a little bit about the amazing things that you do in Indiana with, based on the Swiss systems. Yeah. So, there we go.
Wonderful. Well, good afternoon. It is so great to be here with you all. Really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and speak just from one state over and share a little bit more about the work that we're doing with Indiana. Also appreciate the speakers that came before me. It continues to be energizing to hear from leaders who are really willing to think differently about tackling the challenges, but also the opportunities that we have in front of us. I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about the organization that I'm with, but then also going to try to pack a lot within 10 minutes as it relates to the work that we have been leading forward related to youth apprenticeship in Indiana, a little bit about the Swiss system, a little bit more, and some of those key learnings So first, Ascend Indiana. We're a nonprofit organization. We're based in central Indiana, and we're really focused on workforce development across the state. What that looks like is working alongside employers, educators, community-based organizations to foster partnerships and to equip those communities to be able to develop custom talent solutions to continue to drive their economies. Naturally, in that work, we work alongside kind of all talent audiences. And so in that, youth has been a key component of that. And through the youth apprenticeship work that I'll share about here in a minute, we've played a couple of different roles. One, from a programmatic perspective, we've helped to foster and accelerate the growth of programs across the state through developing technical assistance, as well as being kind of a connector and a convener. And on the other side of that, we've also been a convener from a policy perspective. So we convene a community of practice to ensure that what's being learned from a programmatic perspective is getting fed back into the system. So I'll speak to both of those here this afternoon. I do want to start, this morning we've talked a lot about the changing workforce landscape and how that it not only is it rapidly evolving, but technology is playing a key part of that. And so as a result of that, we know that in the coming decade, and really at this point, less than that, 72% of jobs across the country are going to require more than a high school diploma. You can see here from an Indiana landscape where we stand in that. About 39% of Hoosiers 25 and older hold an associate degree or more. And then when we look at our youth pipeline, we're looking at about less than 40% of our students are graduating high school and then earning a college degree. And where that sits with our state is we got to do more because we're lagging behind in being able to meet that demand of the future. And so that brings us to the work around youth apprenticeship. Indiana's journey began around 2017, where a variety of leaders from industry, policy, and education really came together to do work that Jason was speaking to earlier. And I think in some instances, alongside Jason, to be able to say, how do we look at the best practices across the country, but then also across the globe, to really say, what are some of those key tenets or those key models that we want to dig into deeper? Switzerland was one of those models that resonated from a lot of different perspectives, one from an outcomes perspective, one from, as Jason mentioned, it's a similar size, similar industry makeup. And so the first step in for Indiana was to start with launching some programs. And so in 2019, our state launched the first Swiss-style youth apprenticeship program up in Elkhart, Indiana, so northern part of our state. That was launched through an intermediary that was focused on workforce development, specifically for that part of the region. And then we've grown from there. So today in Indiana, we sit with 7 working pilot programs, with 2 more in the design phase. All of those are ran through local community intermediaries. It might be a workforce board, might be a nonprofit organization, but they're really leading the partnerships, the design, et cetera, of that. And through that, we have over 100 partners, 100 employer partners, 40 school partners, and we've been able to serve 450 students. And those 450 students are experiencing these apprenticeships across a wide variety of pathways. We have 17 pathways for apprenticeship programs to date, and those span from advanced manufacturing to IT to healthcare and continue to grow. And so I do want to pause here and give a chance for you all to hear about some of those apprentices and learn about their experience.
I'm Ethan Zare, and I'm a junior at Edgewood High School.
I'm Sophie McDuffie. I'm a senior at Bedford North Lawrence High School.
My name is Ashton Moore. I go to Edgewood High School, and I am a senior there.
Hi, my name is Italy Lewis, and I'm a senior at Bedford North Lawrence High School.
My name is Maddox Todd. I am a junior, and I go to B&L High School.
I'm Nate Bowles. I'm a junior at Mitchell High School.
I work at Even Automation as an engineering technician, and I'm here working with robots and control panels and putting together mechanicals, drawings. I first heard about upskill in my engineering class. It's, on-the-job experience for a lot of stuff that, I was very interested in.
I work at German American Bank. I just really enjoy working here. All my coworkers are really nice. The hours are perfect for me. So upskills provided me a lot more experience I couldn't get inside the classroom. I definitely feel like I've grown ever since I've started working here. I've handled my money a lot better.
I work at SAIC as an engineer tech intern. I really like it here. I participate in Upskill because I really wanted to get real life work experience before I graduated high school. Engineering wasn't in my horizon at all, and watching all these people do this stuff and show me how it works and learning about it has made me think, well, maybe I want to look into engineering in college.
At the North Lawrence Career Center, I take this class called Precision Machining, and before Upskill, I didn't know about Texicon or anything related to it, so that really helped me open up the field of possible careers I could have.
I have fun at work. My coworkers are so kind and helpful. I've always had a want to work, and giving back to my country, I've always wanted to, ever since I was little, and this is my way to do that. It's given me opportunities beyond high school through Crane. I plan to work out there.
Ever since I've been working here, I realized I want to work in the business field. So Upskills influenced my path in a good way. I didn't know what I wanted to do before, joining this.
It really opens your perspective to what careers are out there. I also learn a lot of skills like communication or how to ask questions, and it just makes me overall more confident about the future.
It's refreshing to be in here every day and, learn something new on the job every day. I'm learning things here that I probably wouldn't have learned in school. It's very eye-opening to see how it works in the real world with people. I'm working with people who have jobs in these industries and who understand the skills you need after you graduate.
The Upskill team was able to help me build my resume. From there, I could apply to a few jobs and ultimately ended up leading to an interview where I got hired on at SAIC. SAIC is a defense contracting company where we build things to support the military. Recently, I've been working upstairs on 3D modeling programs called SolidWorks. I've always known that I've wanted to go to Purdue after high school, and having this internship through Upskill has really looked good on college applications, and I was able to get into Purdue.
I believe that Upskill has put me ahead of where I would have been without it.
Getting that experience is comforting in what you want to do after high school.
So as you can imagine, hearing from those students, we want those opportunities for more Hoosier students across the state. I'm going to continue talking while the lights are out, I think. Perfect, thank you. And right now, and so that program is through an intermediary called Regional Opportunities Initiative. They serve kind of the southwest region of Indiana, and we have more demand across the state for these experiences with students than we have the opportunities. And so the next step for our work has been very much to reflect on what are the barriers to scale. And that brings us into the systems conversations. And you can see here through the work, we've had an opportunity to identify kind of 6 systems level barriers. I'm going to speak to a couple of them because they're key for how we're moving forward in our work. The first one as it relates to lack of industry-created occupations, standards, and curriculum. Mario, thank you for teeing me up there. I think the key in the programs which have been successful to date is that they've worked very closely with employers. But at the same time, what that means is we've built programs oftentimes on an employer-by-employer basis, which is hard then to be able to scale and ensure that an employer up north and an employer down south are not only teaching to the same standards and curriculum, but that the students have the same set of skills and competencies and that transferability. The other piece is that in flexible high school schedules, we have some tremendous students who are saying, I want to be a part of this program and I will make my schedule whatever that looks like. That means working on a weekend, working in the morning or the evenings. We're layering it on top of the existing high school experience. What we need to think differently about is how do we ensure that we're recognizing the learning that is occurring in these experiences and embedding it into the high school component. The last piece here is the fragmented work-based learning ecosystem. We have tremendous partners across our state. I know you do here in Ohio as well. But one voice we hear from employers is they don't know where to start. There's almost too many places to be able to enter in. And so we have to think about how do we coordinate that so that it's easy for employers to be able to step through that door. So we've had an opportunity to identify these barriers. We then said, you know what, let's go back to the Swiss system. and let's take a look at it not from a programmatic perspective, but from a systems perspective, to say what are the key tenets that are really critical to the success. And so we've done that through a collaborative effort through some philanthropic support over the past year with over 150 business leaders, educators, policy makers, and community-based organizations to say, how do we take those key systems barriers and translate that into our Indiana context? And this is the translation of that system that I just showed you. I share the caveat, our Swiss partners would say, this isn't our system. And they're right. We've tried to adapt it for what works well for the efforts that we're leading forward. So a few things I want to highlight here. The first one on the bottom that we reflected on, career advising. We've got to start that earlier within our system so that students have an opportunity, as we've heard this morning, to be able to be exposed and be aware of all the different opportunities that exist. We also need the capacity around that. The other piece to point out is the right side of the chart, the professional path. That is the path that ultimately employers own. They are setting the standards, the competencies, the curriculum. And the key thing is, it's not just one box that starts with the apprenticeship. It is the boxes that continue on for the continued career pathway and career growth. The last thing I'll highlight here is the arrows. This is when you hear that the Swiss system has no dead ends. It's related to the arrows. And so we're reflecting as a state, how do we build those arrows and ensure that there are mechanisms to be able to move from all of these different experiences so that, because we know a student at 15 is going to look different than an individual at 25, 30, and we want to set them up for success. So what are we doing about it in Indiana? So the first thing that we're working towards is establishing these talent associations. I think Mario mentioned it as it relates to that intermediary. And that's what we're seeking to do, is identify organizations that can speak with one voice for an industry. These are defined by employers. Employers are saying in advanced manufacturing, life sciences, healthcare, and banking, this is the association that I want speaking for me as it relates to standards, curriculum, and developing the training. Those associations then will work alongside educators at the K-12 post-secondary level to be able to develop the programs that are needed across that pathway on the slide before. Establishing mechanisms for progressing up and across. Easy here, it's the arrows. Easier said than done, but we recognize that for our state to build that system, we need to not only have the programs, but we need to have the pathway. The labor market career advising system. What we learn in Switzerland is the level of capacity that is dedicated and built around their career advising system. It actually sits outside of the education system, but it works in partnership with educators. And so what we're trying to have conversations with industry and education, what does that mean for Indiana? What does that mean in a US context? But we recognize we need a system around career advising that is able to feed the labor market data, the job trends, and all of those key components forward. And the last one here is probably the least fun piece of it, but we always need to have clear roles and responsibilities. So this is really speaking to governance. How do we ensure that all of the actors, which we need everybody at the table, has an understanding around what their expectation is, what the role is that they play within that system. And then as you can imagine, that feeds implementation, it feeds funding, et cetera. So that was my quick overview of not only kind of some of the key tenets that's resonated with Indiana around the Swiss system, but also how we're starting to layer that in. And what I want to leave you with is where we're heading. So in this work, we truly believe if we can really lean into some of the systems change, leaning on the learnings from the programs that continue to serve students and be successful, that we can serve a cumulative 50,000 students in Indiana through youth apprenticeship opportunities by 2034. And ultimately, it's developing that education to workforce system that creates more opportunities to build the skills and to build the training needed for tomorrow's jobs. So, thank you.
All right. I know we're sitting between you and lunch, and I know we're just slightly a minute or two over. So we're going to limit this to just 15 minutes, and hopefully this will be a nice interactive conversation. Tori, I'm going to start with you, because I know a bit about your story and about the story of Vicksburg Warren. And I think you mentioned it but didn't emphasize it. I think it's really important. Can you talk a bit about what it was like to bring the community into the conversation? Because what you're doing in Vicksburg Warren has ultimately led to increased graduation rates and better accountability ratings, but it didn't start that way.
Well, based off of what our graduation rate was, the community had a certain perception about what was going on in the district. So involving them in the process and informing them about where we were going helped them to commit to us. It helped change the narrative around the district and what the community thought. And it helped develop a sense of ownership from them that this is our school district who will provide employees for us when they graduate. And it's linked us up to the point where Merit Health, our hospital, is now wanting to host our biomedical class in our Health and Human Science Academy. So bringing them in, the initial part, school boards can be difficult sometimes. So with them seeing that the community was on board, our parents, everybody, we just kind of rallied around the change that needed to happen in Vicksburg. And they became the drivers of the work, and it made our jobs a little easier.
And Mario and Eric, I'd like to invite you into this conversation because while Tori had a conversation at the district level, you're talking about things at more of a state level. So how does that look for each of your jobs and your work?
Difficult, because every state does things differently. And when you're dealing with 12 states, I mean, just one of those prime examples here in the United States, the sheer variety of what you can do. Yeah, sometimes I'm more of a kind of a person, I don't want more choice, I want nicer things. The problem that we have is when we work within the system, then just one example, registration of those apprenticeships, to have the U.S. credentials. Usually it's the U.S. Department of Labor, which is perfectly fine, but half of the states in the United States run their own state apprenticeship agencies. Now that means you have a registered program already, but we're operating in Wisconsin, we have to re-register. We're operating in Minnesota, we have to re-register. Imagine what this would do for a company that has locations in all of those states. They're immediately not interested in that. So that's a little bit of the challenge, and then you mentioned it as well, the lack of standardization. And it doesn't mean we take away any kind of freedom, quite to the contrary, because we need to come up with something that the student is looking for in terms of also transferable credentials. So not just saying that the student is going to stay with this company forever and ever. I mean, this is real life. There's no guarantees here. But those kids are looking for something that they can take with them to another company. And if that's not appreciated at the other company or in another state, if they have to start from scratch, they're not interested in that. So the sheer variety, the sheer unlimited options is hard for us and also for companies to understand where to start, what to do first.
And I would add, I think in our work, we've recognized that we've had to create different types of forums for different types of leaders to be able to engage with. So I mentioned, that network of pilots at the beginning, and we have what's called an accelerator. And the goal is for those programs to be able to come together and to be able to share what are the successes, what are the challenges, what are the best practices across that. Now, similarly, the work that we started last year through what's called iLab, which is an implementation lab in partnership with some of our Swiss partners, that was at the leadership level. That was with our Department of Education, our Commissioner for Higher Education, legislators, CEOs. And so we've recognized that we have to first start with what are we trying to solve for, identify the key stakeholders who have the expertise and the influence, and then create the forums so that we can foster the collaboration towards that.
So, Erica, I want to dig a little deeper into this, and Mario brought it up, and you referred to it as talent associations, right? And I know that comes out of the Swiss model, and I think it's similar in Germany, that there's a comfort already with industry allowing for an industry leader to help set the standard and speak for the industry. That is not the tradition here in the United States. Right? And I don't need to tell you both because you know that because you work with it every day. But I would love for you to talk a bit about that. And then, Tori, I'd like to bring you into that conversation because you did it at a much more local level. So it's not full industries, but companies, and how you bring them into that conversation to help set the standard.
So I think there's a couple of things at play here, and I think we heard it kind of throughout this morning, is we're really thinking about how do you move employers from being consumers of talent to co-producers of talent. And the key in that was, for us, taking folks, industry leaders to Switzerland to be able to see it firsthand, to be able to see truly the commitment and the role that employers are playing within that space. And so the follow-on to that is we have a lot of great industry associations in our state, but very few of them are actually focused on talent and really getting in the deep end on what does it mean to develop talent for this industry. And so that was the translation that we're working through right now, is for employers who went to Switzerland and then came back and then built a broader coalition of employers who are committed to this, to be able to say, who is best positioned for your industry to be able to lead that process forward. And the key is it doesn't just sit with that entity. Those employers have to stay engaged. They need to be at the table across that. To the other piece is we had education right alongside. We brought educators as well so that they could see what that dynamic looked like, and we continue to have educators part of the process because there is that collaboration and partnership.
Yeah. I want to add to that one thing, how we did that, how we scaled it. Yes, the lack of those associations that are the gatekeepers of the standards, that's the one issue, but you don't have to reinvent the standard. When you talk about the industry standard, it's there already. So a mechatronics technician in Germany is absolutely understood, what those core competencies are that those people have to have at minimum, like every US company wants to have it here. So what we did is we literally went to a lot of those employers on a one-on-one basis. We didn't get them into one room and then can you agree on that one, because they would have never agreed on this being the standard, because every company is different and every company is special. But what we did is we went to those companies individually and said, hey, listen, this is what the industry standard of a mechatronics technician is. Could you live with that? And they said, interesting. Yeah, I would need a little more of this. Perfectly fine, you can add whatever you want to. And all of a sudden you had 5, 6, 7 companies that were talking the same language. And this is when you have the first cluster together, the first group together, and then you have the first ambassadors that way better can talk about these programs than I ever will.
So for us, we were able to tie our community partners with the industry through our career academies, architecture, construction, mechatronic, and engineering, our ACME Academy. The Army Corps of Engineers were able to tie in with that faculty. We have 2 career coaches, and each academy has a counselor who ensures that we are meeting the needs of ERDIC, which is another branch of the Corps of Engineers. So we tie communication arts and business. Lynn Foley, who's the manager of 3 hotels, she's involved directly with that academy, so she can inform that career coach and that counselor and that staff about what the expectations are for students or employees coming into the industry, and making it engaging and something that was relevant to them, help tie them in and helps our kids once they leave.
So this question is going to be for all 3 of you. You'll take a different viewpoint, I think, on it, but there's more of a recognition now than ever before that not all students need a 4-year degree. That's the rhetoric. But usually when I'm talking to educators or I'm talking to politicians, they'll say that out loud and then privately say, yeah, but not for my kid. I mean, my kid's going to go to a 4-year college, right? But, I'm out there talking about the opportunity for 2-year or 1-year certificate program, right? So there's this sort of rhetoric of we don't need college for all, but then there's this other sort of private, like, acknowledgement, wink, wink. Well, yeah, not for my kids, but, for yours it's fine, Tori, but not for mine. Talk a bit about that, because in the space you're playing in with internships, apprenticeships, with any of this sort of applied learning, often the next step is not a 4-year college. It's not always, right? I'd love to hear the one girl who said, I'm going to go to Purdue, right? But often it's to a 1 or 2 year certificated program that allows you into the workforce quickly. What do you say to those parents who say, that's all fine and good for somebody else's kid?
I have stories I can share. We had a young lady who finished an automotive program. She was doing an internship at the Toyota dealership. She's making a whole lot more money than our first-year teachers right now. So I can point to story after story where non-traditional students as well as traditional students go through, and some don't even go through a community college program, but they go and get high-paying jobs that allows them to be productive, contributing members to our community.
Do you want to go?
I think I think one thing that we've seen from the programs that we currently have, like I mentioned, we have incredible demand for those experiences, because I think, you know, as parents and students are able to learn about the opportunities on the other side of these, they recognize that these opportunities are not just preparing their students for a job, but it's truly preparing them for the opportunity for a pathway and for the lifelong learning that we know is what we want to foster and develop. Now, the key is ensuring that we're building the system. This is where that work comes in, that it truly enables a student to be able to do that, so we can continue to have stories of youth and opportunities along that way. The other thing I would share, and I just lost it. So if it comes back to me, I will share.
We'll go to Mario and we can come right back.
Back over to you.
I would look at it the other way around. You know, what about those kids that don't have the means to go to college or aren't classroom learners? So if I, from an industry perspective, insist on this position, demanding a 4-year college degree, just because I could afford to get those people in the past, I'm missing out on an entire target group, on an entire pool of talented people. We've got. I mean, if moms and dads are going to do what moms and dads are doing, that's what they're here for. We have so many people in these programs where, you know, the families couldn't afford to send them to college. Or those kids weren't able to go to college for the reason that they are just not classroom learners. But this combination of, you know, a classroom where you learn things and then immediately having a chance to apply what you've learned, talking about the troubleshooter things. You know, this opens up career pathways for those people. And also keep in mind, going to 4-year college or whatever comes with a price tag. So not everybody's able to afford that, and not everybody's willing to afford that. And if I can, as a German, I'm flabbergasted with how many college students I speak halfway through, and I just want to ask them, like, what do you want to become? And halfway through a 4-year college degree, their response is, I'm still figuring out. I just don't get that, you know? I mean, there's so much money at stake, you know, that you will carry on your shoulders, even with your oncoming jobs, where I'm just saying, okay, we need to do a better job in career preparation, also in exposure. And that's why I love the last thing I'm going to say here to answer this question, your career exploration. We need to make sure that our high school students can explore different options. I grew up over there in Germany. I went through that system. I had to go through 4 mandatory internships to even graduate from high school. It didn't get me a lot closer to what I want to become, but I had a pretty much extensive list of what I don't want to do. Yep. Hell no, I'm not going to go into the trades. Hell no, construction, not my thing. You know, so, and that helps. That helps to avoid those mistakes you make just because everybody out there says you need to have a 4-year business degree or whatever. Wouldn't have been for me.
So, obviously, we're getting ready for lunch here. We only have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to offer one more question for all of you. I'm going to get you out on this one. And it is, I want you to talk about the systemic barriers, because I'm sure there's a lot of folks out in the audience right now who are saying, I'm intrigued or I'm inspired and I want to think about how I would do this, but I don't even know where to start. And what I mean by the systemic barriers, I mean, there are the logistical barriers of things like the inflexibility of our schedule or the difficulty of the logistics of transportation or the worry about 15 or 16-year-olds out in the workforce and not here on my campus, right? Then there are the other more mindset shifts that have to happen of industry thinking they are nothing more than a consumer of the product that comes out of our schools rather than a partner, right? All of these challenges, even with folks who are really well-intentioned and very interested in trying to do something like you all have been describing, Talk a bit about what is the first step? What do they need to be mindful of? Let's give them some tools as they walk out of here real quick that they could start with.
Ladies, I'm a Southern gentleman, ladies first.
Sounds good. I'll probably sound a little bit like a broken record, but start with the employer. And it's coming from a couple of different perspectives in that. I think one is when you start with the employer, you are able to forge that partnership and that relationship that is going to enable the design of a program that not only supports the student in learning skills, but it supports the employer in building that talent pipeline. And when there's a win-win-win in that way, you have an opportunity to grow, scale, bring others along within that, and you have an opportunity to be able to kind of influence from there. The second piece I would say, though, is find those community-based organizations or others that have an expertise in designing programs. Because what they're able to do is to be able to layer in, and you have a collaboration around all kind of the pieces of the puzzle to be able to develop a program.
Mario, Tori, I'm going to ask you to jump in before Mario, because what Erica's talking about takes a lot of trust from an educator to say, I'm going to yield the standard to let somebody else outside of my control set it. So, Tori, could you jump in and just say a bit about that? Because you've had that experience firsthand.
Well, I think involving them in the process, the outsiders along with the educators kind of help bridge that barrier or that lack of trust. But for us, it started with a couple of simpler questions. For our parents, what are your hopes and dreams for your students? Even your most difficult parents want the best for your students. They just want you to tell them, how will you get them there? And that's where the conversation began with us, is what are your hopes and dreams and aspirations for your students? We involved the educators in that process and in that question. We asked the same thing of the community, so that helped bridge the trust gap. And everybody understood the why. If your why is just a test score, then there's always going to be that gap. So the community understood that we had our kids' interest at heart. Our educators understood we were trying to do what was best for kids, so that our community partners. So that's where it began with us. And it was also about us being opportunity-minded and not problem-minded. Some of us have solutions in search of a problem instead of the other way around. Yep. So I'm always trying to think about how, not why can't or why we don't. So.
Mario, you get the last word here.
I get the last word is, it's got to be quick. Number one is, well, the question probably, I forgot that a little, but the question was like, how do you start that? When
where do you start?
Talk to us, period. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, so we know the loopholes to avoid. The other thing is, and in regards to, if you're unsure from the education perspective, like, can I even deliver? What we noticed is, and when we started scaling in Illinois, we have the community colleges. All the colleges are doing things different. One associate's degree here is not necessarily this. You might be amazed at how much is in place already. Mm-hmm. That's what I found. We just don't see it because we deal with it every single day, but you come across a common, baseline that every school, every college has. And again, talk to us. Happy to show you cases and places where it works and where you can, and I'm also even happy to facilitate and to start the conversation in those peer groups, CEO to CEO, educator to educator, agency to agency, just to have, the real voice of those actually who do it. It wasn't that short of an answer. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. So what you were expecting from the agenda was that we would have some time to ask questions. We don't have time for that, but we're all here at least through lunch. So if you do have questions, I know all of us are approachable. Come ask questions. But other than that, I'd just like to thank the panelists for their time.
Thank you.